Hiya, hiya, this is the old timer's best friend, Joey Reynolds. I'm still here. Everybody always wonders, hey, how long is that guy going to last, Come on. I'm here at the home for the relatively unimportant. Sit here in Florida, and oh yeah, if I get chilled, because people say chill, then I just put on my blanket and sit here and wait for the caregiver to come. There's a little sign on there that says, Joey Reynolds. Have to have your name on everything because they forget about the medications. Sometimes you can get medications for the wrong thing. You get very excited. I mean, you don't want to mix your Viagra with your sleeping pill. Maybe you do. All right, now here's the deal, okay? Bill Whitaker is on 60 Minutes, black guy. Now, they've been bitching for a long time about white guys wearing blackface. Now, this has been going on since Al Jolson doing what they call the minstrel. It was comedy entertainment because black people had the rhythm and they had the moves, the great talents. And the imitation of that was the biggest and best entertainer in the country, Al Jolson, who was a Jewish man, rather short, and he put on blackface and did Swanee, how I love you, singing about the South, And everybody got pissed off. This generation is pissed off about that generation, which everybody loved it. We thought it was great. Amos and Andy were two white guys on television, on radio. And they did a show. Nobody saw who they were on radio. There was no faces, obviously. Then on TV, my favorite television show of all time was Amos and Andy. Why? Because I laughed. I loved the Kingfish. Oh, holy megala, Andy. That kind of thing. Calhoun, come over here. And the characters on the show were great. The mommy-in-law, and it was always in court with mommy-in-law and Kingfish. Kingfish was always in trouble with his wife. Whoa. And the mother-in-law took him to court, and every time out in that play, and Andy was the real taxi cab driver. Was that Andy? And Amos was the taxi cab driver. It's a great show. I love it. And Bill Cosby bought the show and stopped running it. But they didn't want to have the black community represented that way on television. And then All in the Family, of course, came years later with Archie Bunker being a bigot and the Jefferson spin-off of it. And my favorite comic of all time in real life was Red Fox. Why? Because he was funny and a good guy. I liked him very much, and he was also in real life a bad gambler. He owed more money to the casinos in Vegas where he worked than he got paid. He was over at Thunderbird, I think, a lot of times, and he had. I remember I brought my mother to see him, and she thought she was going to see Sanford and Son. She thought she was going to see him as Sanford, but instead he comes out with the dirtiest mouth and the worst, most vile material, which he was famous for on records, incidentally, before he got the TV show and they cleaned him up. But he was at the midnight show at the Thunderbird, and he said to everybody in the audience, he said, I don't want you out here. He said, don't you see my name out there? It's Red Fox, Foxxx. That X means that they're going to be vulgar. But he was funny about everything. I mean, all the things he said about white women and leaving the top of the car open so that you could eat ribs and fart and not bother the passenger. I mean, this is a guy who really was amazing. And they don't do that anymore. But there's a little bit of, I would say, the Nigger Family. Remember that? That was another thing that was done by the brothers, who were very funny. They did a whole series of shows on Fox. But people get mad at anything racist, and it's only a history of the world. And we come through a lot, and that's the funny part of it. The fun part is that we actually can laugh at ourselves. I do that all the time. I laugh at how ridiculous I am. I do things sometimes that I at the end of the day I say, what the hell was I thinking? Like the Seinfeld thing. What was he thinking? And Bill Whitaker. Now let's go to this. I did a thing a couple of years ago at the Consumer Electronics Show. I'd go every year. I lived with Jack Wayman, who's the founder of the show. He died a few years ago at 95 years old. And I would go every year to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, the biggest trade show in the world. And they had a bobbing head. And they took my head and did a virtual with it. I have a video of it. It's been on YouTube many times. I can't show it to you right now. But Frankie Hudak, my friend, moves my head electronically like this with his hands. And I was like, Coca-Cola had a commercial called for Max Headroom, which was a talking head. And it was a computer generated. They called it artificial intelligence, you know. Now, Bill Whitaker, who has taken exception to blackface, has now become, with this artificial intelligence, a green face. Let me see. I got it all the way. Here we go. Where? Did I lose it? I'm losing it somewhere, but you get the point. But more than getting the point, I'm going to show you the picture. Where is that? Come on, you guys. Keep it up there. Keep it up there on the screen. There it is. So now you got Bill Whitaker. We're going to get pissed off that he's a green face. Kramer was wrong with the blackface thing. That was mean. When something's mean, I don't like it. But when it's funny and it's borderline mean, I still laugh and then I move along. My favorite radio stations in Philadelphia, I worked at a radio station that one side of the building, WFIL, was the white people. That was me playing oldies, because the old disc jockeys were mostly white. There were a couple of black guys. Then at the other end of the building was the FM station that was called Power, and it was the #1 station in Philly, which was essentially a black market, you know. And there's a lot of people who were famous on that side. But the white side that I was on raised the money for the black folks, which is Nigeria and Ethiopia. You know, there's mostly black populations. And we had the Ethiopian crisis, remember? And we raised money for it on our side of the building, which also embarrassed the other side of the building to get busy with it. So, you know, the color barrier is way over, it's overdone. And putting all these black people in these jobs on television right now to replace white people because they want to have a black presence, corporations do that. But the audience just wants to have entertainment. We're looking at someone, whether they're talented or whether they're able to deliver the message. That's all we care about. Then we don't care about color. And I think there's a great deal of black and white and a few Asian people now who are very good at what they do, you know, besides the one guy in Star Trek who turned out to be gay. So now you got another reason to find fault. You know, we're looking for it. And as was said by George Burns, was going to be 100 years old and going to be 100. And he was going to play the Palladium. And they asked Mel Brooks, what do you think? George Burns is going to be 100 years old. He said, he's just asking for it. When you're 100 years old, you're really got a little, you're shortening your life a little bit. And Larry David. Now, I lived with Kramer. I lived with Kramer, not the one that was Michael Richard, but the real Kramer. The whole show was based on him. And he and Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld were all stand-up comics together. And Larry David was very unpopular with the audience because he would tell the audience off, walk off stage and say insulting things, like Andy Kaufman used to do before Taxi. He was a guy that was famous for that. And before that, Lenny Bruce used to insult everybody in the world. And he would smoke weed and swear. We've been through a whole series of funny people. And we don't have anybody like that right now. Why? Because everybody's afraid. They're all afraid to cross that line and piss off someone. Well, you know, comedy is not supposed to piss you off. It's supposed to make you laugh. But if everybody's got a closed mind, you're not going to make anybody laugh. And so what needs to change in America is the obvious, which is for people to understand that we're all one and we're all here on this planet and everybody's got a right to the space, and let's have some fun with it, because you only got a short time. You may as well enjoy the ride. This is going to end pretty soon. And then you got to leave it to somebody. If you don't leave it, you're not going to keep it anyway if you don't give it away. So that's it. That's my big message today. You know, breaking the color barrier, and the Martians are complaining that Bill Whitaker's got a green face. Oh man, and I got to bring out my bobblehead, and you'll see it moving back and forth. You probably think this is computer generated right now. It ought to be. The favorite position that I have around this house is when they put tape on my mouth. It's a, what was that guy that wrote me that? Oh yeah, I got a comment on that. He said that I was talking about social networking, and Richard Wallaby, I think his name was, one of the viewers of this particular series I'm doing, and he said his wife invented social networking. Yeah, it's called gossip. All right, okay, I'm done now. I'll give you another serving later. I got to go check my blood pressure. It's a Reynolds wrap.